having actually been on location where people were slaughtered, how does that impact your perspective? The problem, of course, is that so many who would love to come are hearing such negative things about Israel, about how dangerous it is, that they are afraid to come. What is your experience in coming here in terms of, do you feel like your life's at risk? Do you feel like it's a dangerous place to come? Is this really more dangerous than, say, Chicago?
Well, I can talk about Chicago. I live, when I'm in America, in Michigan, hour and a half, I can be in Chicago, right? So, and I've been in Israel many times, 10 times, I don't know. So I am definitely 100% more afraid to go Southside Chicago any day of the week, any hour of the week, than I am to come here to Israel.
Reporting from JerusalemForEndTimes.com, this is Brian Schrager. Last week, Israel sponsored its 7th Christian Media Summit, bringing about 130 Christian journalists from around the world to the Jewish state. They came from China, the U.S., Western Europe, Eastern Europe, from South Korea, South Africa, South America. They also came from Ohio and the Czech Republic. One of them is my good friend, attorney John Holler. John lives in Columbus, Ohio, where he does a weekly world news roundup examining global events through the lens of biblical revelation. It is superb. Another friend and journalist, Martin Zuras, who is also a pastor, holds dual citizenship in the U.S. and in his home country, Czechia. These days, he spends half his time in Michigan and the other half in the Czech Republic. Born and raised in communism, escaping from it twice, his unique perspective on today's news is both refreshing and sobering. What John and Martin saw, what they heard, what they learned firsthand at the Media Summit is a perspective on Israel that is forever changed since the days before 7 October 2023. The summit also portended a welcome return of Christian tourists to Israel. Should you plan a visit? If so, what will you see? What will you learn in the classrooms of first-hand exposure to Israel's border communities and their witnesses? Is it safe to visit the Jewish state? Keep thinking about these things as together we sit down with John Holler and Martin Zuras to discuss what they saw and learned last week in Israel.
Martin and John, it's great to spend some time to meet up with you on this evening when you have just been attending for the last few days the Christian Media Summit in Israel. And you're based in Jerusalem, but you've been all over the place. You had a big kickoff, reception or gala on Sunday night, and then you went to what? Judea and Samaria, right? On Monday. And then Tuesday, you were up in Capernaum and even up at the Syrian border. And then today you went in the opposite direction and you were down near Gaza in the communities that were hit by Hamas. So much has happened, we can't cover it all. But I would like to know what has especially stood out to you the most, not counting today, but in the first few days of the conference. What has really stood out to you? What has impressed you?
Well, pretty much the main reason I came to the conference was I knew even before the itinerary that they're going to take us down to Gaza. I've been all over Israel many times, but I have not been there. And so that's where I wanted to go. We did see the kibbutz and we did see the Nova Festival spot and where the massacre happened. And we even saw the house at the kibbutz of the Bibas family. That out of this whole few days, that was the most that, made an impact on me. It's one thing to know about it. It's another thing to see the place where it happened. And the Nova Festival is kind of sanitized. It's a memorial now, cleaned up, but the kibbutz and the houses are still destroyed.
John, we're going to talk about that trip in just a minute, but John, not counting today, what impressed you the most?
We went up to Syria. We had an IDF talk to us for quite a while. We also went up to Metula on the Lebanon border. I mean, all the way as far as you could go.
Wow.
And that was interesting because about 90% of the people have not yet returned to Metula. Kiryat Shimona appears to be more normal, having been there 7 or 8 years ago. So I guess the one thing from my tour in this is I kept hearing the same story over and over again. So I'm not sure how to say that. It was like everywhere we went, we heard the same story. And then we heard the story of resilience of people to reestablish their communities. That's incredibly inspiring.
Well, if you were asking actually about the conference, so what kind of did impress me that they were able to put this conference on with everything actually that's been going on. It looks like it was put on probably at the last minute because of the ceasefire. So to put this together, and they had 2 weeks of high holidays. So
Right.
actually, even with some glitches, that's pretty impressive that they were able to do this.
There is one thing there's two things I want to discuss about Near Oz, and also last night up in, I can't remember the name of the kibbutz or whatever it is we went to up in the Golan. Those were very, very impactful for me on a personal basis.
So
El Ram was the name of the
El Ram,
kibbutz
yeah.
yesterday.
So yeah, El Ram is a Druze community, right? And
Yes.
that's where they were hit by Hezbollah rockets a little over a year ago. And I believe 12 children who were playing soccer or at a soccer field were killed in that attack, something like that.
It was from El Ram, you can look over towards Mount Hermon and see Majel Shams, where the
That's right.
Hezbollah rocket hit a soccer field and killed 12 children. So what they did,
I understand that a mother of one of the children who was killed spoke.
Yes.
Must have been very moving.
It was. So the mother spoke. There were two fathers there, and it was very moving. And then I talked to the fathers. I mean, how can they handle all this, and how can the one father, they were looking for his son. He was a soccer player. They were looking for his body for days because the rockets fell right next to him, and it just blew him into. I know it did, but this is how it is. Blew him into pieces. Okay, they did not get all the pieces of his son, and so I'm talking to him, and and they were Druze, and he just said, you got to go on with life. It's I can't even imagine.
I think it's important to note that these are not Jewish citizens. They're Druzim, and
That's
they
correct.
are highly regarded here in Israel. They serve in the military. They serve throughout the country, and they too suffered a horrible atrocity because of, in this case, Hezbollah in the north. John?
The mother spoke, Brian. The mother spoke, and it's hard. I don't know if I can go through what she said. She first introduced her daughter to us. She was 11, very pretty young lady, very dynamic young lady. She spoke 4 languages. She spoke Druze.
The daughter did. The daughter who was killed.
Yes, the daughter was
11-year-old daughter was killed. She spoke 4 languages. And listen to this. She spoke Hebrew, Druze, Turkish, and she had taught herself German because her goal was to go to law school.
Wow.
And she wanted to go to Germany to go to law school. And so you're talking about an extraordinary young lady. And this Hezbollah rocket came in and snuffed out her life. And then I do remember very vividly the mother talking about the other young man that they focused on and how it took them, as Martin said, days to piece his body or parts of his body back together to determine that he had been killed because they couldn't find him. And so the mother was very interesting. She said, listen, we live in Israel, we're Israeli, we're Druze Israeli, but we're very loyal to the government and any country in which we live, which was kind of interesting because they did talk about some of the problems that the Druze and Christians are having just across the border in Syria and Sweden. We had a journalist also talk to us. And then IFCJ was there to talk about how they're taking aid into those communities.
The IFCJ is the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, which is a huge organization, has done this remarkable job. Yes.
Yeah, she was just talking today, the IL, and she said they have raised $3.1 billion for the help. And there were actually, she was talking about yesterday how they went across the border from where we were to the Druze community in Syria. The IDF made it happen to bring food and medicine. But the one interesting thing that I actually experienced, so when everybody was inside at El Ram waiting for dinner, I went outside and behind the building, I found the cooks that were grilling the meat on the grill outside. Was three of them Druze, and I talked to them, and so I was asking them questions. So they were all impacted. They got family across the border, and the one that spoke English, he was telling me that Israel is the only one that's helping them,
Yes.
nobody else, and that he wishes that all the Druze would move into Israel. He said some of his family have moved out of Syria to South Africa, and he said, I wish all Druze would move to Israel. Israel is the only one that is helping.
And Brian, as you know, since the 67 war, the Jewish communities there in the Golan and along the new border that was expanded when Israel took the Golan, those communities have been separated from each other for 58 years.
Right.
It's hard for us to grasp, because we look at a war and we look at lines on a map. But the interesting thing that we did was we met people that are living in the midst of this. And I will say, the Druze mother was full of hope and did not seem to be bitter. At least I did not perceive that at all. Martin, maybe you had a different take.
Same take. Not bitter. Of course, a lot of pain, but they're about life. They have a lot in common with the Jews in that life and celebrate life, and not like the other culture that celebrates death. The one thing I would want to talk about, of course, Islam, but the one other thing, when I was talking to the Druze cooks, I asked, so your community across the border, the Druze, were they better off during Assad or now at Jelani? And he said, Assad. He left us alone.
Really?
Yes, he said 100% Assad. They were better off under Assad. Jelani, they're coming and they're killing them, killing the Christians as well. He said 100% much better under Assad for
Of
them.
course, as we
I have
speak,
heard similar
as we speak
stories.
right now, Giuliani is in the White House, I believe, or he was.
No, he's supposed to be there soon if he's not already been there.
Right.
He's enjoying the parade of the jihadis that have been coming to the White House recently.
He can put
Not
on a
very
suit,
impressed.
doesn't change who he is.
Right. That's kind of a
maybe
metaphor too,
now
because that's one of the big threats of what will happen with Hamas. Hamas will just redefine itself or rename itself, and it will just be the same entity but with a different name or face or outfit. It's one of the big risks that Israel is facing in this 20-point plan, which probably won't come to fruition in any case. I do want to ask you about how you perceive the whole conflict with Hamas and Hezbollah and to the Houthis and Iran having actually been on location where people were slaughtered. How does that impact your perspective?
My perspective on that is, which it's always been that. It's just been reaffirmed by talking to people here and seeing the actual sites and talking to the survivors. And I mean, at one of the survivors at the Nova Festival, we talked to, she lost 5 friends there. It's funny that in America, mainly the anti-Israel crowd always accuses that Israel controls America. Israel controls America. Israel gives all this money to America. It's actually quite the opposite. America has always controlled Israel, but control in a bad way, always pulling them back, forbidding them to finish the job. I mean, now you got to give back the Sinai. Stop before you get to Damascus. Stop before you get to Cairo. Stop before you finish Hezbollah. Stop trying to protect the Druze in Syria now. It's always pulling Israel back, and Israel just needs to do what it needs to do without being hand-tied behind their back. That's my perspective, and it was only reinforced here.
John, your thoughts?
So having been to the Gaza site twice in the last 4 weeks, it's shocking when you walk through this, because Far Gaza, where we were, 68 killed, 18 taken hostage, 2 still held hostage 4 weeks ago, that it's the twin brothers who've since been released. At Deir Az, over 50% of the community was either killed or captured by Hamas. And you go into in a kibbutz, they live communally. You go into the central area, and there's bullet holes in the glass doors going into the dining area. There are bullet holes in the wall at Deir Az. And it was interesting because I think some of the people in our group, I pointed them out and they go, oh, well, what's that? That's bullet holes.
Yeah.
Where they shot their way in because they knew this is where they could kill more people. There were some kibbutzes where there were bullet holes. There were others where there were none. And I believe that this is because the people were employed in Gaza that came in. By the way, we talked to the head of security there. He said they were not Hamas that came to Nir Oz. They were regular Gazans, many of whom had worked there and had supplied people with maps to plan attacks.
Right.
And kill as many and rape as many as possible. There's a young lady, well, to me, she's young, from Iran. We talked about the rape, and she said, this is what they do. It's hard to talk about, but she said, in prison, when a virgin was going to be executed, she was raped before her execution. This is what they do. This is the reality. And it's also done to male prisoners as well.
The world, so much of the world right now is still demonizing Israel and what it had to do to defend itself in response to what Hamas did and, according to its charter, still plans to do, which is completely destroy the Jewish state. They are actually committed religiously in the name of Allah. They're committed to the utter destruction of Israel. And yet that narrative seems to be so powerful. Israel has video of what these Hamas terrorists did, that the Hamas terrorists themselves recorded.
Oh.
It seems, I know that it's very, very graphic, but it does seem like somehow this material, even in an edited form, needs to get out. What are your thoughts about this?
For some reason, Israeli government does not want to release it. Don't know why. But we just got a link from the summit to some photographs and some footage. I haven't looked at it yet. I can't because
it's blocked in Israel.
It's blocked in Israel, so you can't see it in Israel. Talk to a few people. Nobody knows why. Nobody knows why it's not being released. If it's because of the families, to their privacy, to not being plastered all over. Who knows?
So I will tell you what I will confess as I walked through Nir Oz and thought about things, and the rape issue came up, and I had talked to our colleague who talked about Iran. I was enraged, and I will confess, I don't know how to say this. I got up in the grill of the people who organized the conference about why this footage has not been released. Well, to protect the privacy of the families. And I said, this is a war. You have a museum in Jerusalem. We have museums in New York and Washington that are dedicated to the memory of a Holocaust. Nobody that runs those museums considers the embarrassment or stuff of the families. Get over it. Get the word out there and stop calling it a war on Hamas. It's a war on Gaza. You got to get control of the narrative. This information needs to be released. I got up in their grill about it, because I'm concerned about the narrative.
Look, I can tell you one thing is the Nova site, some young Israeli girl with some digital company stopped me if I would do an interview. So I did, and just talking about it. Just talking about it. Okay, and I grew up in communism. I'm no wussy, all right? I went through hard, tough times. It takes a lot to make me cry. And talking about it at the end of the interview, I just started tears, and I had to stop. And I can't imagine what these people are going through, and the world needs to know and needs to see the barbarism of what the innocent civilians did, not just Hamas.
If you're not yet a subscriber to endtimes.com and would like to see the rest of this important report and others like it, I urge you, subscribe right now at the website endtimes.com. For only $7 a month, you'll receive a wealth of information and insight from Jimmy Evans, Mark Hitchcock, and experts from around the world, including Israelis living right here in the Jewish state. Do yourself a favor. Sign up today.